Hi there. So recently there's been an uproar regarding what Donald Trump said about Sweden.
You look at what's happening in Germany. You look at what's happening last night in Sweden. Sweden. Who would believe this? Sweden. They took in large numbers. They're having problems like they never thought possible.
The media are making out as if he's totally insane and that there's absolutely nothing going on in Sweden, which you'll assume is true if you only get your news from mainstream media outlets that fail to report the atrocities migrants are committing against European women and children. Whether you want to believe it or not, there exist certain no-go zones in Europe, which are areas that even police officers won't enter because it's too dangerous for them, and the government is going out of its way to cover up these problems. The truth is that sexual assaults have skyrocketed in Sweden and many other European countries in the past few years. Gangs of Moroccan street children have taken over Sweden's biggest train station, pickpocketing, groping women and assaulting workers, Stockholm police have revealed. They grope girls between their legs and slap them in the face when they protest. All police officers are aware of this. I would never let my children go to the central station. No officer would, he said. Refugee children invade Sweden. The number of children seeking asylum in Sweden has exploded over the last 10 years, presumably because children are granted asylum much quicker than adults, and Swedish authorities don't verify the age of these children. Refugees are allowed to bring their entire families to Sweden once they get residency status. The word child is used very loosely, seeing as these men are considered children, some of which look like they could be 40 years old. There was recently a gang rape of a young Swedish girl live streamed on Facebook, and the rapists were laughing about it. Did you hear about this in the news? Swedish police have blamed young girls, Western behavior, alcohol culture, and non-traditional gender roles for the rise in migrant attacks. The report says refugees might not be able to handle the alcohol and simply feel horny and have ignorance of the consequences for the girls. Claiming that non-European men aren't capable of controlling their sexual urges is racism of lowered expectations. Over the past 3 years, hundreds of young women, some as young as 10 years old, were raped by migrants. The migrants often use a specific tactic called taharush.
Instances raping them. The men first surround their victims in circles. Some then sexually assault her, while others, not directly involved, watch or divert outsiders' attention to what is occurring. Sometimes, of course, the victim is so terrified and in a state of shock, unable to respond, and then she's also robbed during the ordeal.
And these attacks usually go unpunished because the large number of perpetrators and chaos of the attack means authorities are unable to identify those involved. Municipality in the Swedish city of Malmö decided to approve underage child marriage among the refugees. This is absolutely disgusting and has no place in the Western world. Many artists, including Mumford & Sons, have cancelled music shows at festivals in Sweden due to the mass rapes that occur at music festivals. The Swedish police are giving out "Don't Touch Me" bracelets to Swedish women in an attempt to stop rapists. This clearly didn't work, so now they are instructing women to start dressing differently and to avoid leaving the house alone after sunset.
När vi som rör sig ute sent på nätterna att helst inte göra det utan ordna skjuts. Eller att man... Ja, jag är ledsen att säga det, men jag tycker att man ska iaktta en försiktighetsprincip.
Men det är ju väldigt allvarligt att man går ut och säger till kvinnorna att ändra sitt beteende.
Ja, tyvärr så är det så. Det kan sluta med ännu värre än ett våldtäktsförsök. Och de händelser vi har haft här där kvinnor är utsatta, så tycker vi att det är ett grovt våld.
And this is not just in Sweden. German women are being encouraged to wear the hijab.
Ich auch. Ist doch hübsch. Enjoy difference, start tolerance.
As a result of mass migration in Sweden, welfare programs have expanded and crime rates have increased exponentially. The majority of immigrants live off government subsidies paid for by taxpayers. Many immigrants are completely illiterate and are unable to work. According to the UN, Sweden is destined to become a third world country in the next few decades. When right-leaning people claim they don't want millions of migrants coming from completely different cultures, you call us racist bigots, when in reality it is you, the left, that is insinuating that culture has intrinsic ties with race, and it might have. I mean, I have no idea, but I certainly do not insinuate that when I talk about differences in culture. Truth of the matter is, there are millions of people who grew up in countries where child marriage is normal, where women are not allowed to leave the house without a man accompanying them, where rape victims take the blame and are imprisoned or stoned to death, countries where gays are thrown off buildings, countries where thieves have their hands cut off, female genital mutilation. These things are common practices in many countries here on earth. Different cultures exist. Some places are literally hell on earth. You can't expect to import millions of people from these cultures who have grown up in these environments and for them to assimilate into Western culture, when many of these people hate the West, hate democracy, don't believe in equal rights, etc. If you live in America or if you live in a nice neighborhood in the Western world and you haven't traveled or researched other cultural practices, please wake up. Stop calling people who don't want to have to live in these neighborhoods racists. This is not just Sweden. Paris is currently in a state of panic. It's like a war zone. As a person who's traveled quite a bit, I feel like each country is almost like a different world. I grew up in Greece and I had a major culture shock when I moved to the United Kingdom, which is just another European country. And I've experienced culture shock when visiting other countries. If you haven't traveled outside of the country you grew up in, and especially to third world countries, please think about this. Paris syndrome is a transient psychological disorder exhibited by some individuals when visiting or vacationing to Paris as a result of extreme shock resulting from their finding out that Paris is not what they had expected it to be. There is such a thing as extreme culture shock, which can produce hallucinations, dizziness, anxiety, and other psychosomatic manifestations. So please take a step back and imagine for a moment that you grew up in a country where women are covered up from head to toe and you can't even see their eyes, where being scantily clad is considered to be a sin, and you move to a country where women walk around half naked and women on television are incredibly hypersexualized, and you've been led to believe that women that don't cover up are asking for it and are trying to entice men and deserve to be raped. I could go on and on for hours reading you Swedish, German, French news stories, but I'm going to tell you straight. This is an invasion.
ونبشرهم بأننا على موعد أن كما فتحت القسطنطينية وكما ستفتح ثانية إن شاء الله. إننا على موعد أن نحكم العالم كما قال الحبيب المصطفى صلى الله عليه وسلم. النظيرون والاستراتيجيون قالوا إن أمريكا ستنتهي عما قريب، ونقولها الآن ستنتهي أمريكا وأوروبا المتحدة، ولن يبقى إلا قوة الإسلام المتصاعدة.
رغم هذا الانكسار فالغرب إلى زوال. كما أزال الله مملكة الروم سيزيل الله الغرب على أيدي المسلمين. هذا وعد جازم. هذه الدول التي ترونها ستدخل في الإسلام وسيصل إليها الإسلام.
وسوف ندوسهم قريبا بإذن الله. أوروبا التي شاخت وهرمت وتريد طاقة بشرية ولا أقوى من طاقتنا البشرية. كلهم تقطر قلوبهم حقدا على المسلمين، يتمنون لنا الموت، ولكنهم فقدوا إخصابهم ويبحثون عن إخصاب عندنا. سنخصبهم وسوف ننزل.
If you are a European man or woman, start training. Learn to defend yourself and your people. What are you going to say when your grandchildren are forced to walk around in a niqab and ask you what you did during the planned invasion of Europe? Say you avoided being called a racist? Wake the fuck up, speak up, do something.